You're welcome back to the show. Ghana's parliament has approved 826.8 million for the Electoral Commission for the conduct of presidential and parliamentary elections next year. The commission has budgeted over 1.1 billion cedis for the polls, with the expectation that some 100 million would be used for other administrative expenses. This leaves a funding gap of almost 400 million cedis. The commission expended over 200 million on the 2012 elections. Let's speak to Dr. Franklin Odro, who is Deputy Director of CDD. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers.
Thank you. Now, what does this funding gap mean for next year's elections?
Well, first of all, on the face of it, I think it comes across as worrying in the sense that one of the things that we don't want to do as a country is to handicap the Electoral Commission so that it can be effective and perform its task, especially in our political environment where there's a lot more competition. It's a polarized society. The Electoral Commission, as the empire, needs to be properly funded so that it can perform its task. So on the face of it, it's a bit worrying. But I think we also have to go behind just the figures that have been put out. We need to find out which particular line items that were cut. Will those line items not funded affect the overall performance of the Electoral Commission? And I think it's very important for us to look at that, because if it would, then it is important that the executive, parliament, and all other stakeholders come together to find a way to respond to this gap that have arisen.
Now, one thing the minority leader, for instance, said yesterday on the floor of Parliament was that the EC, part of the items they listed was the training of some political parties. And his argument, Oseche Mensah's argument, was that all these parties you're talking about, they've already had their elections. So why the need to include that in the budget? And some other, lists that they think may not really affect the EC if they should strike them out.
Absolutely. In fact, that is precisely the point that I'm trying to make, that let's step a bit back. First of all, budgets that come from public institutions are what I call wish lists. They contain wish lists, desires, certain things that they want, they need to do. Not everything that they put in the budget are essential, that if they don't get, they cannot perform. We need to look at the broad and the key mandate and objective of the Electoral Commission. What is it that they need to be able to execute that function? And if there are certain wish lists that are in the budget but may not necessarily undermine the effectiveness of the Electoral Commission and can be farmed out to other institutions, then we can look into that. So I think it is important, and to be frank with you, I have not had the opportunity to look at the detailed budget. Members of Parliament have, and the Honorable Minority Leader may have identified some of those items that he raised. So I think, the cost of elections in Ghana, let's face it, is high. It's been high during the past years. And if you do a comparative of the cost of election in Ghana with other countries, even a sub-region, it raises a lot of concern as to why that we cannot continuously work towards reducing the cost of election in Ghana, but at the same time, making sure the Electoral Commission perform as it's supposed to do.
Now,
I think we need.
Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that I think we've come to a point that we need to critically examine what is it that Electoral Commission brings out as their budget for the institution. What is it that as a country we can do away with? What is it that we need to strengthen, and so that we bring value for money into our electoral expenditure.
Having said that, some people are also of the argument that it is likely the EC might have used money somewhere to conduct, the 2012 elections, and therefore these things they have included, they may need the money to refund those, people or those areas they took these monies from. Could there be substance in that argument?
I don't think so, because, as far as we know, and as far as this nation is aware, the Electoral Commission budgeted for 2012 elections. The government of Ghana, our development partners, supported that exercise. And I don't know whether there are still outstanding costs that have not been paid for, whether they were budgeted for and monies were released or were not released. If monies were not released, that's a different matter. If they were budgeted for and monies were not released, that's a different matter. Then that we can deal with that. But the point you raised, I'm not too sure how that comes into 2016. And I don't think that an experienced institution like the Electoral Commission will do that. That's my view on that. But I think it's also important for our parliamentarians to investigate all these issues and to ensure that they resource the Electoral Commission in a manner that will make them effective and in a manner that will not unduly undermine its effectiveness in conducting or in organizing elections that will be accepted by all the stakeholders.
Next year's election is very crucial. Shouldn't the EC get the opportunity to explain these elements?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's important. So as we speak now, there's a shortfall of 400 million or close to 400 million plus. I think if the EC feels strongly that they need these resources to be able to do its work, it's important to let the nation be aware. It's important to let parliamentarians be aware. It's important to let the Minister of Finance, the executive, be aware that these resources that we have budgeted for are critical for our work, and we need that. Of course, elections in Ghana since 1992 have also had a huge role for our development partners, our donor partners. I don't know to what extent that the 800 million that has been approved factor into whatever our development partners have contributed to the multi-donor budget basket, which also forms part of Ghana government revenue in terms of budgeting and where revenues are going to come. If the 800 million is only coming from government of Ghana without our development partners, then this is where we may need to have a conversation with our development partners to see how they can also support the process. Because I think they are also interested in Ghana deepening its democracy, in Ghana strengthening the electoral processes, so that come 2016, we will have a credible election.
Dr. Oduro, you're talking about donor partners. There are also people who are of the view that when they sponsor our elections, they are almost always in the position to dictate to the country how we should do our things. So, should we depend on them that much?
Well, ideally, 50 years plus, and with all the resources that we have in this country, I think it's about time that we as a country find it essential to fund some of the essential democratic developmental processes. Ideally, I would expect that our government of Ghana will fully and totally fund our electoral processes. Unfortunately, that is not the place that we have. And that argument that development partners will dictate for us, in my view, is not tenable. So what about the other areas that development partners fund? Did they dictate for? Is that argument that when they give us funding to produce water, to produce electricity, to produce other developmental programs, did they dictate for us as to where and how we should do it? Of course, they will be very much interested in value for money. They will be very much interested in whatever their taxpayers' funding are coming to Ghana are used prudently, are used in a manner that goes to meet the objectives. So if they are showing sense of accountability, sense of transparency of the resources that come in our way, I think it's proper. In fact, we shouldn't expect donors to be asking those things. We as Ghanaians should be asking our Electoral Commission for transparency and accountability and judicious use of resources that the government of Ghana gives to them. We shouldn't leave that to an external partner to demand for us. If they are demanding that with respect to whatever resource they give, then we as citizens of this country also expect our Electoral Commission to be more responsive, to be more transparent, and to be more accountable with the resources that are being given to them. This week and today, we are talking about 800 million. We are talking about over $1 billion Ghana cedis. I think it's huge money that requires that we are very much interested in how we fund our Electoral Commission and how the monies that are taken from our taxes given to them are also used judiciously.
All right, we'll end here. Thank you so much. Dr. Franklin Odro is with the CDD, Head of Research at the CDD. You're still here on News Desk. My name is PH. So when we come back, we'll bring you the latest in the world of business. Stay with us.